Hello and welcome to News 500. I'm Stephen Allen.
And I'm Maff Brown.
And these are the headlines.
Tories scrap the Human Rights Act since it doesn't really apply to them.
SNP arrives en masse in Westminster, or as it will now be called, Glasgow upon Thames.
No more balls in Parliament as Ed loses his seat, and no more cock as George Galloway loses his.
That's right, we are post-election. There are lots of highlights. For me, it was Nick Clegg's journey from Land's End to John O'Groats. Lots of people said he should have kept going.
Michael Gove has been appointed Justice Secretary and plans to implement some of the programmes he launched when he was in education. His first step is to let prisoners set up their own free prisons.
To tell us more about new prison policy, here's Archie Maddox.
Literally in a tree.
Thanks, Archie.
Ed Balls, Nick Clegg, Ed Miliband and Nigel Farage headed to the job centre after the election, but were turned away because it was closed due to government cutbacks.
Can't believe Ed Balls lost his seat.
Balls.
Boris Johnson won his.
Balls.
A 20-year-old was elected in Scotland.
Balls.
Basket.
Balls.
Cannon.
Balls.
Big Hairy.
Balls.
Moth.
Where?
Balls losing his seat has become known as the Portillo moment of the election. Not to be confused with the venue length in the next Lib Dem conference, the Portaloo moment.
To tell us more, here's Archie Maddox with his view on what the election result means to the man in the street.
I'm in a tree now. I'm literally in a tree. You can see me in a tree. There's no need, it doesn't make any sense, but that's where they put me. Do you know why? I don't even know why. It doesn't need to make sense, but they just put me in a tree because they're trying to make some big political point about how it's going to be worse for everyone. Doesn't mean I have to live in a tree. Why have you put me in a tree? Yeah, I know, you think it's fun. Don't turn the camera away from me.
Thanks, Archie.
One of the main takeaways from this election is how we didn't see it coming. Matt, you've been taking a closer look at the pollsters, bookmakers, political pundits and politicians. Why did we all get the result wrong?
Well, Steve, simply the British public lied to the pollsters.
Could you elucidate?
No, but I could explain the false polls as a result of the shy Tories, people too embarrassed or ashamed to admit that they voted Conservative.
Why would they be ashamed?
Ashamed? Selfish bastards happy to see the acts of the welfare state, thus avoiding any tax increases? I've no idea, Steve.
But the big change must be the arrival of the SNP.
Yes, their MPs have already been spotted in London moaning about property prices and the price of a pint, and of course the sunlight.
Can Labour ever present a viable opposition?
Well, first they need to find a leader. They're trying to move away from being led by millionaire barristers, career politicians who fail to relate to the public.
Yeah, it makes a lot more sense. Any frontrunners stand out?
Yeah, Chuck O'Mana, an ex-City lawyer and a former advisor to Ed Miliband.
What could possibly go wrong?
With only 8 MPs, the Liberal Democrats will now have to get used to a reduced media coverage. Their next party conference will be shown on Dave, as he is their only voter.
Boris Johnson is now a Member of Parliament and still Mayor of London. He says just because he now has 2 jobs, there will be no detriment to either. He promises to be shit at both of them. To tell us more, here's Archie Maddox.
See her just run past? It's a human right. Do you know what we're not going to have any more of? Human rights.
Thanks, Archie. But why are they getting rid of our human rights?
Balls.
David Cameron's a fucking wanker, mate. That's why. It's a person walking past and they got a baby. Do you know what's going to happen to that baby with no human rights? You could torture it. I'm going to look at them now.
In non-election news, there were numerous complaints over naming a monkey after Princess Charlotte in Japan. People felt it was disrespectful to the monkey.
A lorry driver was caught reading a book at the wheel whilst driving the M60 in Greater Manchester. Shocking. Someone in Manchester reads a book.
For more from our regular Northern correspondent, here's Steve Gribbin with a pointless analysis of the Labour drubbing.
And so, as the dust settles on the most depressing electoral results since the United Kingdom had Gemini in the Eurovision Song Contest, already the post-mortem has begun. In the words of Bruce Willis in Pulp Fiction, it's dead, baby. Ed Miliband, the problem on the doorstep, the man who has spent the last 5 years looking like a cross between a startled fawn and a mogwai, apparently did much better than expected. Well, only starting from a base of 0. That's like saying, is Dad out the coma yet? Yes, his eyelid just twitched. Yes, bacon sandwich gate was unfair. Yes, you'll always find me in the kitchens at parties was unfair. But at the end of the day, Ed Miliband had all the charisma of an empty long-stay municipal car park. And lo, the ghost of Christian centrism, Tony Blair, hath appeared unto us lately, and he hath said, "Ooh, Labour lost because it was too left-wing. Let's all move towards the centre." Oh yes, Tony, I really noticed how left-wing Labour was during this election campaign. When Ed's head was superimposed on Ross Poldark's body, you could just hear him saying, "Of course, we're still going to do cuts, but my cuts will be gentler and considerate cuts. Look, I've deliberately blunted this side." Tristram Hunt said Labour did not connect with ordinary people. Listen, mate, your name's Tristan. Even your porn name is probably Downton Abbey. Being lectured by you about connecting with the working class is a bit like Paul Nuttall lecturing about Islam. But don't despair. Cameron only has a thin majority of 12, a bit like Jesus, and there could well be rocky times ahead. I predict a riot, or as the Ipsos Mori pollsters would say, I predict a quiet night in with a cup of cocoa and a bun.
Order! Order!
Thanks, Archie.
Scientists have discovered that dolphins create social networks just like humans, which explains why you'll never see one on Google+.
Kim Kardashian banned the taking of selfies at the launch of a new book called Selfish, which is full of selfies. That's like Kanye West banning cocks from all his concerts.
Don't worry about the Saturdays splitting up. Rochelle from the group has said they aren't calling it a day. Someone needs to look up Saturday in the dictionary.
I used to have a Saturday job. I was Frankie.
That's it for this week's News 500, the week's news in 500 seconds. Or as Pauls would have it, news in fuck knows how many seconds.
Ish.